goddamn sense.
Another drop.
And no cam, because this game is beautiful. And I don't feel like superimposing myself on it is particularly doing a lot, especially considering I'm just kind of making a lot of thinking faces, occasionally going, It's certainly a difficulty. Well, thank you, Cake. But not today.
And here next to me is Jerry Hazelnut. We all wish the young tree walker lots of luck. But now, on with the program.
Ha! I was on the radio.
We all wish the young tree walker lots of luck. But now, on with the program.
Alright, so he's useless to us.
A blue root.
I got that beautiful dwarf root from the dwarves as thanks for promoting their blue juice on my show. But the listeners at home already knew that, of course.
I'm doing alright.
That's Buzzy, the dewfly. I call him that because he creates a bigger buzz than even I do. Actually, he belongs to the post office, but I've grown really fond of him. But, shh.
Looks pretty comfy to me.
Alright.
What an awesome flower. I shouldn't pick it, but I just want to touch it anyway. This isn't a museum after all.
That, Jerry.
What an... this isn't a
I didn't want to...
This isn't a...
Okay, cool. I don't want to click it a third time. Well, since it's not a museum...
The stick won't help here.
You can't hit it with a stick this time? Alright, well, we made some attempts. Let's listen to this other statue. This is the third of these odd crystals we've seen. And it's going to be another place. Probably where a nail gets driven. What did you have to say again? This fox seems trapped.
Nothing. There's probably nothing here that will grow.
Except if... Alright, Jerry, fine. That's if you want to have that attitude about it.
I better be
Yeah, let's not...
I better be...
Let's not throw things at the radio station.
I better be...
Let's see what this place is like at night. Oh, Mole is still here. Interesting.
That's Buzzy. I call... Actually, but...
Do I have to drug the mole now, too? It's usually how I get the things that I want in this game.
Set up in honor of the fox or to annoy chickens.
It's a wonderful
In
night
fairness,
here in
chickens
Elfwood.
eat mice.
Plato's mailbox. I wonder what's in there. I have a choice. Wet feet or ignorance. I'd rather stay dry and not know.
Okay. Also, tampering with people's mail is a crime, Jerry. That's a real crime. Don't do that. Why is that your first instinct?
It's... Oh.
Jerry, you are a weird kid. I got coffee, Cake. I'm sipping on that. I assure you, I'm keeping nice and healthy. I kind of had the feeling that something would have changed here after removing Mr. Mole. That is apparently not the case.
This thing is huge. It smells...
No, not the shoe. Not particularly interested in the shoe.
I've heard that the fields are haunted. It's really not...
Oh, that's right. We were told to go and look for the fox. And we just found a fox statue, and the thing in the fields is fox fire, apparently. Very strange. the stuff what be going down. Figure out where to go. What to do. Magic is getting more bizarre.
There are some very strange green flames dancing over the fields back there. Are they will-o'-the-wisps? How eerie.
Well then. I'm glad
Looked like you
Plato's just
conjured the
fine with
rain
that.
yourself.
Yeah, well, I... Uh-oh.
What is it, Jerry?
This is a different fox.
A fox!
It's also very small.
What? Who are you?
Jerry, be careful. Don't move.
Wow.
Oh, but my little froggy heart is still racing like crazy. Fortunately, the fox wasn't hungry for either of us.
That was no ordinary fox. Did you see how many tails it had?
I wasn't paying any attention to that. But what a scare. Oh, holy dragonfly.
The fox jumped towards the swamp. I have to go after it.
That's...
There it is again.
Okay, so we're gonna chase this fox for a while.
It jumped further into the swamp.
Alright.
It almost looked like it was waiting for me. I'm going after it.
I mean, the fox is definitely pulling from the same mythology that Naruto does. The same mythos.
Huh? Where did the fox go? Another fox statue? Was that here before?
It was not.
You caught me! Alas, now I have to go home.
Alright. Sure.
The fox jumped into a portal. I can't let it get away.
Folks, you won't believe what I just saw.
Oh my. Isn't this pretty?
So, you finally returned to us, Kitsune. I hope you'll stay a little longer with us this time.
Oh, the fox skipped off. Again. So, its name is Kitsune. But who just talked to the fox?
Definitely couldn't be a statue. Definitely not.
So where am I now? It is very quiet here, as if there are no people anywhere near. Only more of these fox statues. But I can hear a very soft ringing, or chiming.
We've heard this chime before from those crystal statues. Well, let's listen to some rocks. Because being people doesn't make you people
Nothing's
anymore.
happening. Maybe it's because it's made from wood, not stone.
That's probably true. Gatekeeper is sleeping above me. Okay. So we have to find which one controls the gate. Oh, we want one too far. Above you. There we go. Found it.
Who disturbs my slumber? I cannot see you, but I sense your presence.
Don't
Your path
leave it
has led
hanging.
you to this point, but no further. I am the keeper of this gate. I am the guardian of this place. A blind fox could smell you from miles away. And so can I. How did you arrive in this place? That we foxes wrested away from the humans. Human. Since I did not allow you to enter through this gate, you must have gained access through the tree node.
Yes,
Smart
the
statue.
portal.
Kitsune. Her dealings with humans have rendered her almost as blind as I.
Is that a reason to not let me through?
This gate will remain closed to humans.
So we have to not be
Set
human.
up in honor of the foxes, or to annoy chickens.
Let's give this last statue a listen to. Okay, that's very useful.
Stop this cruel din. What my blind eyes cannot show me, my ears will tell me twice, and my nose 10 times. I can smell you,
So we've got
human.
a couple of different senses to fool here. Not just his smell.
Rose hips are cool.
Really? You're not gonna make him smell the rose hips, you jerk? Alright, fine.
That doesn't need any.
Okay. Where else can I go here? What else is there? Let's have ourselves a look through the magic coin.
Over there, in the bushes. I see something sparkling.
That's new. Aside from the
I
leprechaun,
can see a little golden bell
thing has
hanging
never
there.
turned up
I
an
wonder
item
if the
before.
fox from Mousewood lost it.
no, we have one new item. Let's try.
Kitsune, is that you? The bright chime of your little bell cannot be mistaken. Your smell gives you away, human.
I...
You really thought you could deceive this old blind fox?
Well, yes.
Oh, well, I...
A human? Deceiving a fox? No, this is precious.
Actually, I'm trying to return this bell to the fox.
Ah, returning her lost property. What a noble gesture. You may pass, but be careful, human. Never trust a fox, especially not one like her.
Wait, aren't you a fox? What? Also, I was definitely trying to dupe him. Definitely. I will not avoid owning that one.
I find it surprising that you should be kind enough to bid me farewell. Thank you, my beloved.
It was bound to end sooner or later.
Yes, it is the end of warbling birds and green pastures. Instead, it is the beginning of murky waters
Alright,
and
see you around,
empty
Cake.
notebooks.
I have to go.
I know.
Not a trace of the fox. Maybe that lady can tell me where it went.
Are you daft? Are you...
Hey!
Come on.
The fox is right here, but where did the lady go?
Kid.
Ha! At last! Gotcha! Whoa!
Oh, boy! Stop following me around, Jerry. Don't you know what it means when someone is running away from you?
I don't think
I'm so
Jerry
sorry.
does.
Do you want me to leave?
No, please. I don't want to be alone.
What in
what
the
happened?
world?
I wish I could tell you, but you would hate me. And there is already more than one human who hates me.
You should never use the word hate. It will ruin your teeth. That's what my mum always, I once read that in a magazine.
Well, how would you feel if someone had broken your heart? Wouldn't you hate them?
I don't know. My heart's never been broken yet.
If you stay with me long enough, I'll break it for you if you want me to.
I think I once saw someone's heart being broken. Didn't look very amusing.
No, humans are so fragile. Not in the least like foxes. We try to make you happy, but it never works out.
This statue once said I should never trust a fox.
But he's a fox as well. At least, that's what he was before. A few hundred years ago, he sold his 9 tails to a demon. So why should you trust him?
So everybody here is not trustworthy.
What happened?
I wish I could tell you, but you would hate me. And there is already...
Alright.
Did you also set a classmate's lunchbox on fire? That happened to
Also?
me. It would have been a great magic trick if it had worked. But let me tell you, they really hated me after that.
Well,
For
how
good
would you
reason.
feel if someone had broken your heart? Wouldn't you...
I don't...
If you stay...
I think I didn't look...
No, human... Not... We tried... He... At least... So what...
So, you,
Oh, over in the other world where we met.
Really?
I'm sorry. I should have introduced myself. I'm Kitsuna.
My name is Jeremiah Hazelnut, but my friends call me Jerry.
Jerry. Oh,
I think you lost something.
oh, please keep it. I would like it if you took it with you, so you'll remember me.
Okay.
This is an interesting encounter and a weird shift for the game to go.
This is probably a silly question, but what are you? Fox or human?
I'm a fox, but I can change how you perceive me any way I want to.
Really? That's the coolest magic trick I've ever heard of.
You think so? It's not difficult. Just give it a try. Anyone can do it if they know how it's done.
Even me. I'm going to be a great magician, you know.
Oh,
So, you can teach me how to do it.
no. I promised on my parents' honor that I wouldn't teach it to anyone. The foxes here only use it to make
Forbidden
people
magic.
unhappy. But not me. I want them to be happy. But it never works out that way.
But I'm a human, not a fox.
I'm sorry, Jerry. I really can't do it. Unless, do you really want to make people happy? When you succeed in making a sad person happy, then I might believe you.
We have to make a sad person happy.
I once
let's go
tickled
with
my
the animal
grandfather's
response.
cat. I had no idea that cats could giggle. Although, to tell you the truth, it sounded more like a sneeze.
How do you confuse those
No.
things?
Laughter is not enough. Have you ever made someone so happy that it inspired them to do something truly outstanding?
No, not really.
Man, this
Then
game gets
come back when you
deep every
have.
now and then.
I know you can do it.
Make them happy to the point of doing something outstanding. I mean, we did get the large wooden statue to open the gate. Maybe we can own that one.
Where did we meet?
I've been watching you for over in the other world where we... I'm Kits...
Okay.
I'll come.
See you...
So we do have one other character, and we should go investigate what he's up to. Oh, he's a poet, too.
Quiet pond. No, that doesn't cut it. Gloomy pond. Ah!
Excuse me, are you a poet?
Am I a poet? A poet needs inspiration. And she no longer wishes to be mine. Instead, she just broke my heart. My name will fade into oblivion, just like my words and the ink on my paper.
Where did that, inspiring thing go to?
This wretched creature, She used me. A true fox. I was a fool to believe that she and I were in any way alike. Foxes' hearts are broken and filled with pain. The pain transforms into cunning. And the cunning of a fox will break any man's heart.
Are you looking for a new inspiration or something?
I need inspiration. But my spirit remains empty and unmoving. Just like this pond, nothing is stirring. And the same is true for my imagination.
And what about this totally green grass? Isn't it, cool?
Your words are just as empty as mine.
Don't tell me I didn't try.
Oh my.
What are you doing here?
Dark water is all I can see. Dark, dark water.
Are you looking for a new inspiration or...
I need inspiration. But my spirit remains empty and unmoving.
This guy is pretty
Just
numb
like this
right
pond,
now.
Nothing is stirring. And the same is true for my...
What about nothing at all? Isn't that, mental?
Your words are just...
Don't tell me it.
Alright. So something must be done. Let's have a gander through a coin. Also, how do we know that he's not a fox himself?
Bamboo! As far as the eye can see. Those would make great pogo sticks.
Would they? They're kind of just regular sticks.
No, really. Why would the poet keep staring at the pond? I don't get it. There's nothing in there. No, why? There's
Nothing in there.
Whoa, those mountains are pretty high. I still haven't got... Could that be the Alps? No idea.
Yeah, okay, fine.
I'd better take good care of it. I'd better...
Yeah, definitely don't... Come on, man. Get it together, Jerry.
Nothing.
Like, bamboo isn't a plant?
Nothing.
Alright, alright. Now, there's no stones around here with faces on them, either. We can't just hit our dude with some blue juice and call it good.
Rose hips are cool. Rose...
Why do we have these rose hips, then?
A stick...
A st-
A stick won't help here.
I don't know, a stick can be pretty inspiring occasionally. No spices either. I don't want to give him my
There
star
aren't
map.
any stars.
Yeah. I don't think this is something that can be solved with items. I think we need to find some dialogue.
Are you looking...
but my nothing. And this...
What about the... Isn't it,
Your word...
Don't tell... No, why would... There's nothing in there. Nothing.
This is a pretty zen puzzle. Guy's contemplating meaninglessness in the universe. He's in a state of incredible despair.
Nothing. Earlier it sounded like it was talking. Hello? No reply. What is that supposed... Can you teach...
Have you ever made some?
No.
Then come back. I know you...
what happened.
I wish I could tell you, but you... And there is a...
You should never use the word. That's what my...
Wouldn't you...
I don't...
If...
I think I didn't look...
No, humans are so... Not in the... We try to make you happy.
This...
But he... At least, that's what he was before. So what...
I'll come back.
See you soon.
So we clearly have to do something with the guy. Because Kitsune has tried her best, but has ultimately failed to make him happy. So maybe, as people, it is our job to make him happy. Maybe a nice magic show?
I don't want to put up any po...
No.
I don't...
How about
No,
some
I'll
blue
keep that.
juice? Come on, man. Dwarf crunk. Magic spells?
I'd better be...
Nails.
No, I...
You can write poems and
That doesn't
songs
need
about
any special
anything. The thing that inspires you, your drive,
I
has
better
to
be
come from
careful.
within. Like, hitting you with objects. Wait, what?
Is that a frog I hear? A frog. Aha.
What?
No. My inspiration is dwindling again.
Okay.
Oh, wait a moment. Yes, I've got it.
Alright, sure.
See the ancient pond. The green frog takes heart and leaps. Sound of the water.
Oh, hey, haiku.
Oh, it's perfect.
You need a third column there, bud.
Basho, you
Or
old
don't.
fool, you've still got it.
Okay. Alright, Basho.
The leap of the party.
He's just kind of gonna go on about frogs and water for a while, I guess.
By giving it room, the light overcoming the heavy. And thus my heart as well.
Man, you get over a breakup real easy.
I saw what you did for the poet. His poems are truly beautiful, but they arise from his pain. In darkest night that's black and cold, that's where the stars shine brightest. Did you know that, Jerry? That is why I had to break his heart. It always happens that way. But you know what it takes to make others happy. And now I'm going to help you.
It takes a frog
Look
clicker.
closely, Jerry.
Ribbit, ribbit.
I understand, but how can I do it?
And it wasn't going to be there then.
Okay.
All right.
Come on, let's go back to Mousewood. Believe me, this...
Oop, OBS is saying I'm very offline right now. Whoa, don't launch anyway. What's going on? Oi. Trying to move windows around. No, I'm not dropping any frames. I guess maybe this is just a Twitch's end thing. I guess I'll just let it continue to run. And we will continue to puzzles. So we've got our third of 4 magics, and now we can deceive. And it's a good thing, because we needed wings a minute ago. And we didn't have any. No, look at them. They're adorable. Fox is at Splitsville.
What's the matter with her?
Don't chase a fox. Oh no.
Do you know where we are?
Who are you? Ah,
What did you see? Do you understand it yet?
No.
I wrote a story for you. It might help you understand. Do not be afraid, but be on your guard.
You want me to read that story? What does all this mean?
That's what I'm trying to find out, Jerry.
The Marquis! Where are you?
Still in the magician's house. You learned the fox's spell? You did very well. Foxes are a bit of a tricky bunch, but they're also quite fascinating, don't you think so?
Yes, but what do I do next?
There is a cold tree in the northwest. To find it, you must seek out the treetops. Travelers who are able to walk between worlds are said to have settled there. The tree will lead you to the eternal ice, and that is where you will find your next spell.
Well, alright, but I would really like to go home for a bit. And soon. May I? Hello? Seems like he can't hear me.
I think he's just ignoring you. You're a pawn in whatever's going on here, Jerry. It's distressing.
Oh, isn't that... Oh,
It is. They're very happy together. It's very sweet. Except this ominous music.
that looks like... I don't know what that looks like, but it seems to be stuck in the middle of the tree. That can't be a good thing.
Yeah, this is...
Plato's mail. I have a wet...
It's a little distressing. Let's move on. So, I'm pretty sure we have what we need to get past the moth.
Whoa! I feel this funny prickle.
There they are.
Greetings of the light.
Yeah, same to you.
I say.
Why are you so mean to these bugs?
Glorious pair of wings.
I do?
Please forgive me for overlooking them earlier. Here we were, assuming that in this strange land that we call home now, no sentient winged beings existed beside ourselves.
Oh, I can feel the wings. But I think I'm just imagining them. Although the moth can see them too. So this is what it feels like to be Kitsuna. I wonder what her true shape is then. And what is she doing right now? Will I see her again soon?
You are carrying on a dialogue with yourself, native. Priestess Phosphora awaits you in the temple. She will derive great pleasure from greeting a native moth.
Okay, I'll just walk on through then, alright?
Just follow the path that is laid out for you.
Jerry is not a
As
smooth
do-
individual. Hello, yes, fellow moth person. I too am a moth. Behold me in my mothness, says Jerry.
It's really cold here.
It is.
Oh,
Nice of
that
you to
must be
notice.
Priestess Phosphora. What noise does a moth make anyway?
They speak words! One was
Beautiful
speaking...
night tonight, isn't it?
Jerry, why are you such a
My
jerk
eyes
to the
facets.
moths?
Do they deceive me? Is it a moth that goes there?
Yes. What else could it be?
I'm really
Hush, Ella,
insulted
let you
for
in.
these
But she is
moths.
not in distress. The air tells me so. You must be a moth of goodwill.
Yes, I am. Phew. For a moment there, I was afraid the spell would only work on one moth at a time.
Whence do you come? You are not part of our circle. Moreover, your mask. You are not wearing it.
Nope, not yet. I'm from very far away.
We bid you welcome. But know that it is only hardship that still keeps us in this cold place.
Seriously, like, we've met mice and squirrels and owls and fox. Like, imagine if he had walked into the town hall and he'd looked at the owl and he would have gone, "Who are you today?" and just never stopped. Like, rude. Come on, Jerry. Get your shit together with these moth people. They're just people. Oh. You know what? We were given a story, and we've been collecting those stories for a little while here, so I think this might be a good time to bust out that journal. And where are they saying? It was like in the extras menu? Let's save. Real quick. There it is, the bonus collection. Audiobooks.
8 Stories from Mousewood by Matt Kempke. Read by Rob Quirk.
Okay. I'm going to let these go, and we're going to listen to them diligently. I'm going to try not to interrupt unless Jerry starts being an awful person again.
The first story. Of mice, squirrels, and Mousewood Forest. Somewhere, tucked away between faraway fields and winding paths, there lies a forest crowded with mice and squirrels. So crowded, in fact, that even a mighty wizard with an even mightier beard couldn't wander the forest's paths without being asked by some tiny rodents for a lift, because they wanted to visit relatives who moved 3 clearings down the road a few years ago because there were gooseberries over there. And because there are so many mice, the forest is known as Mousewood Forest. But something was going on in the otherwise tranquil Mousewood Forest. A forest so peaceful that at noon all you would sense was the soft rustle of the wind in the treetops, the sweet scent of the pine needles, and a lone buzzing bee skipping its lunch break. Yes, something in this tranquil forest was disturbing the peace. For a few days now, some furry, fairly unhappy red squirrels had refused to refer to the forest as Mousewood Forest. The squirrels, as they saw it, were narrowly outnumbered by the grey mice. Why, they wondered, should Mousewood Forest only be known as Mousewood Forest? So they made a great effort to remind visitors out for a Sunday walk or a picnic that there were not only small grey mice, but also auburn squirrels with bushy tails and equally bushy ears. For example, under each sign that read Mousewood Forest, they attached a second, reading, "and Squirrelwood." Furthermore, a few squirrels with particularly fluffy red fur lay in wait behind tree stumps and hidden in foliage to jump out in front of passers-by, look at those humans with honest, beady eyes, and push the idea that this forest could just as well be called Squirrelwood. As a rule, most humans are startled when suddenly something pops out in front of them from behind something. This may lead to them no longer thinking about Mousewood Forest and its name, which could just as well be a different name. Instead, they may flee, never to return. Or they may even scream and shout, since they weren't expecting to be startled. Those who run away never to return, the squirrels reckoned, would probably call fair Mousewood Forest by its name, which might just as well be a different name. A startled, fleeing rambler might even call Mousewood Forest "Don't go there." And that, the squirrels concluded, would be even less desirable than Mousewood Forest. If people started screaming when startled by a small auburn animal, the serenity of the forest would be lost for good. And neither the squirrels nor the countless other forest dwellers, not even the inhabitants of Mousewood, Mousewood Forest's capital, would want that. For serenity in a forest is no ordinary silence, like in a boring, noiseless room, but a cacophony of many tiny, likeable sounds. The wind wafting through the leaves, twigs clicking in the canopy, rustling down in the undergrowth, and the gentle creaking of towering trunks. So, If the squirrels wanted to purposely pop out from behind something, they had to be careful about doing it, without scaring anybody off or disturbing the forest's serenity. Those who know squirrels are probably wondering how anyone could possibly be afraid of the little fellows at all. Well, if a small animal with a bushy red tail suddenly crossed your path, you might be briefly startled, but in an instant you'd spot that the little animal was just as much taken by surprise as yourself. What would follow is a cautious glance and then a quick dash to safety. Then again, if a small animal with a bushy red tail and beady eyes leapt out in front of you when you're roaming the woods, and you happened to notice, after a fleeting moment of fright, that this squirrel was actually up to something, that it was standing in the way of somebody so much taller than itself on purpose, then such a small animal must surely be capable of anything. It'd probably run up to you really fast, climb up your legs and back until it reached the top of your head, and then start furiously tousling your hair with its tiny paws. In anticipation of this, anybody would run or scream, assuming they don't actually like getting their hair tousled by squirrels who are up to something. Since squirrels are generally not very fond of having their own fur tousled, they try and hide the fact that they leap out on purpose. It has to look like a coincidence. Even those blessed with beady eyes have to play act a bit if they want to appear surprised and shy, when they in fact aren't. Just this morning, around 9 o'clock, 3 squirrels decided to practice popping out from behind something, since, as you now know, it's easier said than done. Wait for it. Wait for it. Leap. Stop. Have a look round. Spot the rambler. Freeze. Stare at the rambler and straighten those tufted ears. Add a few skillful hops behind the next bush, spiral up that tree like an expert, and then watch the rambler's reaction from a safe distance. As if you really were surprised to see me. Well done, Oswald, said Edgar, one of the 3 squirrels. He had played the role of the rambler, roaming around before then getting a reminder of the striking number of squirrels living in these woods. He had held a large leaf painted with a surprised human face in front of him to make this training exercise as real as possible. Oswald, the 2nd squirrel, climbed nimbly down the tree, while Edward, the 3rd squirrel, who had only played the role of spectator during this run, hopped out of the nearby bushes. Yeah, really good, he confirmed. Flawless, even. Looked really realistic to me. Thanks, Oswald said. It was time to switch roles. Since Oswald already knew the ropes of popping out from behind something, it was his turn to watch from the bushes. He was in an excellent position to tell Edgar, who had just played the rambler, if he was also good at popping out from behind something, or if there was anything he could improve on. Edward just had to stroll along the path and carry the leaf with a face on it in front of him. When Edgar popped out by chance and confronted Edward, the latter froze as if petrified. The leaf in his paws began to shake, as did his legs and, eventually, his squirrely tail. He seemed truly shaken. Shaken like a rambler afraid of a squirrel tousling his hair. Faced with this, Edgar completely forgot that he had to act like a shy squirrel and was supposed to scurry up the next tree. Instead, he just stared, stock still, at the face painted on the shaking leaf. Edward took his role of a startled visitor very seriously. As soon as he noticed that the animal with the red bushy tail and beady eyes that had suddenly popped out in front of him wasn't in the least bit shy or frightened, he shook even more. "Ah!" he yelled, certain that this was how somebody afraid their hair was about to be tousled would yell. He turned and ran away as fast as he could. And because he was determined to be as convincing as possible, he disappeared for a few days. After waiting for a couple of hours, Edgar and Oswald were no longer in the mood to continue their training. They sat down by a small stream running through the forest and thought. They thought about training, and about the fact that thinking about training was already a good training exercise in itself, sometimes. And then they thought about acorns and nuts. After a while, a group of mice came along the bank of the stream. "Hello there. A very good day to you." "How are you?" Edgar responded. "Good day to you too," said Oswald. One of the mice stepped forward and took a small leaf with writing on it from his rucksack. After clearing his throat, the mouse began to read aloud. "Dear Squirrels, we, the mice, know you don't really like the name Mousewood Forest. Since your kind is so numerous in this forest, it might just as well be named after you. Since noticing how much effort you put into reminding people that the forest could be named differently, we wanted to invite you to a meeting where we will consider, together with the other forest dwellers, what to do about the situation." The mouse rolled up the leaf and put it back in his rucksack. Oswald and Edgar thought briefly about what the mouse had just read to them. They concluded that if they didn't have to remind people that Squirrelwood would also be a fitting name for their forest, there would be plenty of time for all sorts of other things. And Edward would surely say there was no fun in hiding for ages just to play a scared rambler convincingly in order to practice popping out from behind something, if, that is, he weren't hiding right now. So they accepted the mice's invitation and followed them along the stream until they reached a clearing where many other forest dwellers were already gathered. Mice, squirrels, hedgehogs, dwarves, hares and bears, and many more inhabitants of the
Oops. I didn't mean to do that. I goofed.
One young badger was talking to a hedgehog about fishing at the pond.
We're gonna wind that back a
A
little bit.
beaver was discussing the quality of lumber with the hedgehog brothers. Two little mice were playing tag with the rabbit kids, while their mothers tried to persuade a grumpy wood dwarf to reveal the recipe for a drink made with dwarf root. On a stump sat Conrad, the great owl. He was a member of the town council, and his great owl eyes looked benevolently upon the crowd of animals, dwarves, and whoever else had gathered there. "Hoot!" he called out with a deep and calm voice, instantly gaining the audience's attention. "My dear friends," he began, "as you may be aware, we have gathered here to resolve the dispute about the name of our forest. I am honored to hold the chair of this assembly. Many of the squirrels among us would like to see Squirrelwood as the legitimate name for our home. Well, seeing as there are a good deal of squirrels here in our forest, their wish is hardly surprising. But let us not dwell on that." He slowly closed his eyes, only to open them again in an instant, as if he had had a sudden stroke of genius. "A forest called Mousewood Forest. What kind of forest would come to someone's mind who was, not familiar with our beloved woods?" Conrad's head turned inquisitively as his gaze wandered across the gathering. Animals, dwarves, and a few others thought hard. Oswald the squirrel's first thoughts were concerned with nuts, but he quickly realized that these had nothing to do with the name, more the fact that he really liked nuts. So he continued thinking hard and eventually called out in a low voice, "They'd probably think of a wood full of mice?" Conrad, the old owl, blinked with his left eye, with his right following shortly after. "This is indeed what someone would think when they first heard the name. Thank you, Oswald," said the owl. "But there are not only mice in these woods. There is, in fact, no such thing as a forest populated solely by mice. What sort of forest would that be if there were only mice in it?" Much murmuring ran through the assembled ranks. Even the mice had trouble imagining a forest with only mice in. Nothing but mice. "We mice can't do everything on our own," said a young mouse named Humbert, while the older mice nodded in agreement. "All on our own? Impossible," they exclaimed. "You see," said the owl calmly, "and we can't survive without you either." This he said with such conviction that some of the mice flinched. They had good reason to assume that this owl had an occasional appetite for mice, despite his wisdom and kindness. So, if someone hears the name Mousewood Forest and thinks there will only be mice, they will quickly come to the conclusion that such a thing cannot exist, Conrad balanced carefully on the stump as he spoke. They will be aware that there must be squirrels and badgers and ants and crows and all kinds of other animals. We all need each other to survive. But why is Mousewood Forest called Mousewood Forest anyway? Some squirrels wanted to know, still feeling disadvantaged. A wood sprite nervously clicked some twigs. Because, at the time this forest was named, there were a lot of mice here, as there still are today. But even if one day there are fewer mice, this forest will still be called Mousewood Forest. You can't just rename a forest, can you? Just imagine if someone wanted to visit and couldn't find us because the forest had been renamed. Woot! And the squirrels had to agree. They had grandparents who rarely visited since they lived so far away. They didn't dare think how sad it would be if they were unable to visit because they couldn't find Mousewood Forest anymore. Furthermore, Conrad continued, it would not be wise to add squirrels to the forest's name, for then we would have to add the dwarves and all the other animals as well. A name is not supposed to be a census. Woot! Just imagine the confusion that would result. The squirrels preferred to think about nuts and acorns. They were far less confusing. You see, Conrad concluded, it is not about how many of a certain kind are present, or who was here first. This forest belongs to each and every animal living in and near it. Woot! Even if it is called Mousewood Forest, no one would ever believe only mice live here. It is a name, and the point of a name is to paint part of the whole picture, perhaps part of its history. Conrad then realized that most of the animals didn't understand, so he tried to give them an example. You see, someone called Honesty does not necessarily have to be honest. If she is dishonest, she would surely not change her name. Hoot! She would remain Honesty, since that is the name that was given her. The little mouse called Humbert yelled in outrage, but if she were honest, she would return her name. If she were honest, said a surly wood dwarf to Humbert, she wouldn't have to, then she could keep her name. Conrad the owl closed both eyes, before he said slowly, but with empathy and a touch of impatience, you do not change a name. You rarely do. Usually you don't. That would have to suffice. He spread his wings, performed 2 quick hops on the stump, and then, with 2 or 3 silent flaps, soared skywards. Some animals were satisfied with his explanation. Others debated whether Honesty could keep her name if she at least volunteered to return it after a single dishonesty, since that would be the honest thing to do. Others swiftly made their way home, unsettled by the huge owl circling overhead. The squirrels, Oswald and Edgar, were now looking for Edward. He had managed to hide in exactly the way someone afraid a small animal with a bushy red tail and beady black eyes would leap on his head and furiously tousle everything up there would. They walked slowly along the stream. The hubbub faded with each step they took away from the clearing and eventually died away. Wind rustled the treetops, and Oswald paused, pondering. So, the wood is not very much like its name, but it doesn't need to be, since names don't change. It just is. Even though the forest is constantly changing and growing, it just takes its name along with it. Edgar nodded eagerly. Both were glad that, since the forest could not just be renamed Squirrelwood, they and their well-hidden friend would have the next day off. Because somebody, at some point, when the forest was much smaller, had given it its name. And you don't change names. Well, rarely. Usually, you don't. Second story. A wizard at the post office.
That was real long. And I'm not sure that any of the other stories are going to be more interesting than the socio-political intrigue of changing the name of Mousewood. So I'm going to jump us ahead. It's okay. I'll record these and we'll put them in the YouTube archive later. But I'm going to jump ahead to number 6. Because number 6 is the one that the Wood Sprite just gave us after completing a quest event, saying that the story is apparently about us. So we'll listen to that one. I feel like it might be important. But let's
6th story.
go.
Granny Mouse, George the Stag, and a mysterious place deep in the forest. It was early in the morning, and most of Mousewood's animals were still asleep. So if anyone had tried to gently wake them, telling them the sun was up and the birds were singing their morning songs, all they would probably have done was roll over, mumble, and sigh incomprehensibly, just like humans when they want to keep on dreaming. Some animals, though, were already awake, either because they enjoyed the silence when the forest itself still seemed asleep, or because they just couldn't sleep any longer. The latter applied to George the Stag. He'd struggled for days now to get a good night's rest. He always woke up early and couldn't get back to sleep afterwards. Sometimes he was so tired that he didn't even know if he was truly awake or still sleeping and dreaming. So George roamed the deep forest of Mousewood, where even animals who lived there could get lost on occasion. If someone had seen him, they wouldn't have got the impression he was tired at all, since stags have a natural tendency to look regal. If the mice and squirrels ever decided they needed a king, they would surely suggest a stag. A stag's antlers certainly look regal enough. But there was no need for a king. And even if there had been, George would probably just be a prince, since his antlers were still pretty short. The young stag, as drowsy as he was regal, continued his walk through the misty hills of Mousewood. He was in search of a clearing he had discovered a few days back and visited 3 mornings in a row. The strange thing was, the clearing wasn't easy to find. Every morning, it seemed to George, it was in a different place. The glade was as wide as a field. There was tall grass, and the murmur of a stream could be heard nearby, even though it wasn't visible through the reeds and dense bushes. Right in the middle of the glade, still wreathed in mist, stood a huge gnarled tree, with a thick trunk, grand roots that went for miles deep into the earth, and mighty branches towering high towards the sky. George found this tree different from other trees. He liked trees. In fact, George knew many of them, and this one was different. Probably because it grew in such isolation. This enormous tree didn't seem to have anybody for company. Maybe that was why he liked to be around it. George stood next to the tree and looked around the clearing. He wondered what the tree was thinking. "You're an early bird, aren't you?" a cawing voice asked. Startled and bewildered, George looked around, but he couldn't see anybody. Was it the tree talking to him? The answer flapped down to George from a branch up in the green treetop, landing just above his head on a stumpy branch. A coal-black raven, his feathers shimmering mysteriously more blue than black in the day's first sunlight. The bird fluffed up his feathers and made himself more comfortable. "You've been here a couple of times now, haven't you?" he cawed. George nodded. Sitting on his branch, tilting his head to the left, then to the right, the raven peered at him. His black eyes glinted despite the morning mist. "The likes of you rarely venture here," the raven said, gazing across the glade. "This place isn't easy to find. It's as if it were constantly on the move. Yesterday it seemed to be somewhere different, the same the day before," said George. "But I was probably just too tired to find it." "Quite the contrary. You found it because you were still dreaming a little," the raven said. "In their dreams, everybody knows how to find this place. Whoever sleeps will know the way." "What do you mean?" asked George. "Dreamers visit this place," replied the raven. And sometimes they come here even though they're awake. Then two may sit here by the tree and look into each other's eyes. Sometimes a poet comes, or a badger with brush and easel to paint the tree. But they rarely recognize this place from their dreams, even though they've been here many times. George half understood what the raven was telling him, but was utterly confused by the other half. Pondering, he pawed the ground with his front hoof. "And who are you?" he asked. "The memory of everyone who leaves here is imprinted. A raven once came here. After he left, I remained as part of the tree's memory. It remembers many things, and its memory runs as deep as its roots, for it was the first tree. Without it, there would be no forest. Even when its time had passed, it remained intertwined with the forest. Now its roots not only grow to every part of the forest, but also reach into the realm of thoughts and dreams. It knows all the forest's secrets." "But why is it remembering you right now?" George asked, looking at the glade again. There was no one else there, just the raven. "Because I visited it once and sat beside it here in the foggy dew, just like you. So I crossed its mind. It's a wonderful morning, isn't it?" asked the raven, eyes glinting. George nodded. The raven soared skywards again and disappeared in the green canopy. What was left of the morning mist glowed faintly on the meadows under the gentle touch of the sun's light. High above, the wind began to sing in the branches, while the trunk softly creaked. George decided to return to the more populated parts of Mousewood. The stag had the urge to talk to someone less enigmatic than the black raven, so he ran through the tall grass back to the forest. After a while he turned back, but the glade had vanished. Where it had been just moments before, the trees now formed dense ranks, and George wondered if the tree would remember him as well. It was still early, but Mrs. Mouse the mouse was already busy. The old lady was preparing breakfast for her grandchildren, who were visiting her. She had already been to the baker's, luckily bakers are early birds as well, and bought some rolls. So the breakfast table was already set when her grandchildren, Lars and Jess, came tumbling down the stairs surprisingly early. They scurried over to the table, still in their pyjamas. Mrs. Mouse would have loved to pinch their cheeks because they looked so adorable. Then she remembered how she had hated having her cheeks pinched when she was a child, so she spared her grandchildren. Instead, she put a big glass of milk for them each on the table and tousled their hair. "Well, you two," she said, "you're up early." Lars raised his glass with both hands and took a long swig of cold, fresh milk. His big brown eyes looked out from behind the glass. After a swig that size, he needed a while and took a deep breath before he could answer. "Yes," Lars said excitedly, "'cause we're going to sell lemonade outside." "Lemonade?" asked his granny. "Do you know how to make lemonade?" "I can make lemonade," Lars replied, even more excited now. "Drinking lemonade is what you're good at," said Jess, who was a bit older than Lars, as he buttered his roll and daubed it with jam. "But you don't know how to make it." "I do, with lemons," said Lars. After breakfast, Granny Mouse made a jug of her tasty lemonade and gave it to Lars and Jess to sell in glasses to passers-by. They'd been inspired by their good friend Humbert. Even though he was a bit of a know-all, they still had a good time with him. Lars carried a small empty box from Granny's garden to the forest track, while Jess followed with a bigger one. Side by side on chairs, the boxes made an excellent booth for selling lemonade. All that was missing was a sign telling potential customers what was for sale and how much it cost. "How much is a glass of lemonade anyway?" Lars asked. It's not so much what we charge, but how much a thirsty customer is willing to pay, Jess replied like a true salesman, pacing up and down. You mean they just give us as much as they like? Lars asked, scratching his left ear. That wasn't what Jess meant, but he liked the idea anyway. If we're that generous and let people just pay as much as they want, they may give us lots of money, he said, telling Lars what to write on the sign. Lars was good at writing, even though he hadn't started school yet. Tasty lemonade. Price, customer's choice, is what the mice wrote on the sign, and then they waited for their first customer. From time to time, someone passed their booth with a friendly greeting, but no one wanted a glass of lemonade. Then Oswald the squirrel came along and was intrigued by the sign. Just think about what you'd be willing to pay for a glass, Jess suggested. Oswald thought about it. After a while, he asked, So I determine the cost? Yep, said Jess, already worried this would be too challenging and their first customer wouldn't enjoy thinking about the price of lemonade. Oswald ran off and climbed a tree some distance away. He briefly disappeared from sight, then reappeared on one of the trees nearby. He had a big, shiny acorn with him. This one's perfect, Oswald said, polishing the acorn with the back of his paw so it shone even more. The young mice accepted Oswald's payment and poured him a glass of lemonade. He drank slowly, sip by sip. Tasty, he said, returned the glass and took his leave. Lars and Jess put the shiny acorn on the counter and waited for more customers. Suddenly there was a suspicious rustling in the bushes, but the mice were concentrating on the path in front of them. Psst, the bush behind them said. Did you say something? Jess asked, but Lars shook his head. Psst, psst, the bush said, now louder. The brothers turned around, and a stag poked his head out of the shrubbery and grinned at them. George, Lars said happily. Hey, you two, what are you up to? George asked. We're trying to sell marmalade, Lars answered. Lemonade, not marmalade, Jess corrected his younger brother. Lemonade, Lars amended. Look, we got a nice shiny acorn for one glass. George took a closer look at the acorn. It was so shiny he could see his own reflection in it. But it's really not as valuable as a glass of tasty lemonade, Lars said. A little later on, Soft Steel the wood dwarf came by the booth, making no effort to wish the kids a good day. He was about to walk by without a word. Excuse me, George called after him. What is it? The wood dwarf asked, turning round. Do you like lemonade? The stag inquired. I certainly do, replied the dwarf, sceptically peering at the mice and the stag. And now I suppose you want me to pay. But you choose how much, Jess clarified. Pah! On top of all that, I have to choose, the dwarf groaned, pulling a face and pretending to be bored. Maybe you'd like to carve something, George asked. He knew that dwarves were fine craftsmen who probably put all their sensitivity into their craft and hadn't much left over for other occasions. You want something carved? The dwarf asked the mice. Lars handed Soft Steel the shiny acorn, and the dwarf eyed the material. Then he pulled the knife from his belt pouch and asked, And what should I carve for you? Lars looked around. His eye fell on George, standing next to him, looking very regal. Lars whispered something to Jess that his brother seemed to think was a good idea. Carve us a George, Jess said. All right. Well, get yourself into a proper pose, the dwarf demanded. So George took up an even more regal pose, and Soft Steel began to carve. From time to time he looked up at George and then continued carving. Eventually he blew the shavings from the acorn's surface, took a critical look at his work, and then showed it to the mice. The dwarf had captured a good likeness of George on the shiny acorn. A fine work. Jess took the acorn and thanked the dwarf respectfully. My lemonade, Soft Steel said, pointing at the empty glass on the counter. He made no effort to make this sound like a request. The children poured him some lemonade. The dwarf gulped the glass down in one go and left. When he was sure that he was out of sight and earshot, however, Soft Steel smacked his lips loudly, since the lemonade had been truly delicious. Now we have a really valuable acorn, Lars cheered. Mrs. Mouse came out of her house to look for her grandchildren and was happy to see George with them. The kids showed her their new carving, and she immediately recognized George's image. Since he had had such a good idea, the stag was given the rest of the lemonade. Jess took the jug and poured it directly into his mouth, as stags rarely have their hands free. Another satisfied customer, George commented, licking his lips. And as a customer, I choose what I pay. So, why don't we go lantern rambling tonight? What do you think, Mrs. Mouse? Oh, I haven't done that for a long time, the old lady said, wondering if this wasn't a touch too adventurous. Then she said, as long as we take it slowly, my legs aren't what they used to be. Yay! Jess shouted. Hooray! Said Lars. George promised to pick the mice up at twilight. Lantern rambling is an old tradition in Mousewood. When the days get shorter, the forest dwellers light colourful paper lanterns with their children and go for an evening walk. After sunset, Lars and Jess put on warm coats and waited outside. Mrs. Mouse joined them and gave her grandchildren sticks to hang their lanterns on. The little ones could hardly wait for George to take them and their granny for a walk through the forest. Mrs. Mouse picked up the lanterns and unfolded them. Then she put candles inside and lit them. Lars got his first. It was shaped like the sun, with a jolly, illuminated face. The flickering candle flame made the sun smile curiously vivid. Then Granny Mouse hung Jess's lantern on its stick, a radiant crescent moon gazing dreamily into the night. The children held their lanterns carefully so the candles would burn brightly and steadily. Okay, take good care of your lanterns, Mrs. Mouse said. You can wait outside for George, but stay near the house. Yes, Granny, Jess said. Mrs. Mouse returned to the kitchen to prepare dinner, since everybody was sure to be hungry after their walk. Outside, Lars and Jess waited with their lanterns for their friend. George is certainly taking his time, said Lars, cautiously dangling his lantern. Yeah, I hope he's all right, Jess replied. Do you know where he lives? Lars asked with a worried look. Somewhere over there, I think, his brother said, pointing down the forest path which disappeared into the dusk. We could go and meet him halfway. But Granny said we should wait here, said Lars. We'll go and meet him and come back to pick up Granny, Jess said. His little brother found that quite reasonable. So the two mice walked slowly down the track with their lanterns, till all one could see was a jolly sun and a dreamy moon dancing faintly in the trees. Shortly after, George the Stag arrived at Mrs. Mouse's house and knocked at the door. The grandmother greeted him warmly. Good evening. Are you all ready? She asked him, and took her warm coat from the hook by the door. I'm ready, George replied. Where are Lars and Jess? Asked Mrs. Mouse, buttoning her coat. She felt a little uneasy. Why, they're not outside, if that's what you mean, George said, now sharing her unease. Mrs. Mouse ran outside and looked around. There was no sign of her grandchildren. Where are they? They were out here a minute ago, she said, her voice shaking. The old lady desperately looked about for the children. George's stomach ached at the thought that Lars and Jess were out there in the dark on their own. Come on, we've got to find them, George said, and knelt down to let Mrs. Mouse climb on his back. Granny Mouse wrapped her scarf around her neck and didn't hesitate for a second before climbing on the stag's back. Hold on tight, George said. Then he got up and moved off into the darkness in search of the children. Lars! George shouted through the nocturnal forest. "Jess!" Mrs. Mouse shouted. But there was no answer to be heard, nor lantern to be seen. "Where are you?" their grandmother called as loud as she could. They came across some other animals, like Conrad the owl and a couple of polecats, but none of them had seen the kids. And so the stag ran through the woods with the grandmother mouse on his back, shouting their names in the dark. Fallen leaves whirled into the air behind them as the stag dashed through the dusky trees. Soon they'd covered a great deal of the neighbourhood, so the stag went into the deeper, less populated parts of the forest. But still there was no trace of the two mice. "Should we search somewhere else?" George asked, worried, scanning the shadows. "I don't know," Mrs. Mouse said in a low voice. Then something occurred to her. "Wait, I've just remembered where I used to sit with my husband," she said hopefully. "Where's that?" the stag asked. Mrs. Mouse tried to remember, and the stag wondered how the old lady planned to find the way in the dark. "Just go straight on," she said, as if she could see the place in front of her. So George went straight on. Suddenly they emerged from the trees in a glade, the same glade where George had talked to the raven that morning. The huge tree towered on the other side of the clearing, bathed in pale moonlight. George ran over to the tree. "This is where I used to sit with my husband, right under that tree when we were young. It's so long since I've been here." "George, can you see the little ones?" asked Mrs. Mouse with hope in her voice. "My eyesight isn't what it used to be. Is there someone there?" George peered over at the tree, and down at the bottom of the trunk there was indeed somebody. He struggled to see who it was. Then he made out two figures, but not Jess and Lass. George didn't know if he could trust his eyes. Down in the shadows sat a young girl mouse and her boyfriend. They were holding hands and smiled shyly at him. The young mouse reminded him of the grandmother on his back. Next to the couple stood a stag, but George could only see his silhouette in the shadows cast by the silvery moonlight. Curiously, it felt like looking into a mirror. "The tree remembers us," he thought, reminded of the raven's words. "It's not the kids," he said quietly to the grandmother. "Then let's ask these nice people if they've seen my grandchildren," said Mrs. Mouse, wondering why George was so quiet. "Have you seen two children?" George asked aloud. The mice pointed to the right into the forest. The other stag paced around in the tree's shade, calling to someone up in the treetop. George couldn't hear what he said as he was too far away. A big bird descended from the high branches, flapping towards George and Mrs. Mouse. In the moonlight, George recognized the raven he had met that morning. "Follow me, will you?" called the raven, soaring over their heads in the direction the mice had pointed. Mrs. Mouse held on tight, and George trotted across the meadow to the glade's edge. The black raven flew between the trees, his silhouette merging with the forest's darkness. George followed him. When they were back in the woods, the raven disappeared. Instead, they saw a smiling sun and a sleepy moon floating between the trees, as if waiting for something. "Children!" Mrs. Mouse called from the stag's back. "Granny!" the children shouted, running towards them, but carefully so their lanterns wouldn't go out. "You were supposed to stay at the house," their grandmother said, with a mixture of anger and relief. The kids looked sheepish and apologized. "Where were you, anyway?" George asked, slightly out of breath due to all the running and yelling. "We were looking for you," Lass explained. "But it seems you were somewhere completely different." George and Mrs. Mouse and the kids made their way through the dark forest. After a while, they found the track leading to Granny Mouse's home. They didn't talk much on the way, as it had been an exhausting evening for all of them. Around them, the woods were so silent that all that could be heard was the soft rustling of leaves beneath their feet. Just before they reached the house, Lars' lantern went out with a faint fizzle. The jolly sun went dark. Shortly afterwards, Jess's sleepy moon also expired. George was relieved that the candles had lasted so long. Without their light, they wouldn't have been able to find the children so easily in the dark. When they reached the mice's house, George bade them farewell. The house was far too small for a stag, and he was also very tired. After saying goodbye, the mice had dinner and went to bed. When Lars and Jess had brushed their teeth and crawled under their warm blankets, Granny Mouse assured them that she wasn't angry any more. She was just happy to have them back, safe and sound. The children had to promise their grandmother not to run away again. Then she tucked them in and put the lights out. And shortly after, both little mice fell asleep. Their granny waited for a while, listening to Jess mumble in his sleep. He already seemed to be dreaming. The old lady went downstairs, and later, sitting in her armchair, she looked around her. On a cupboard stood pictures of her children and grandchildren. One showed a girl mouse and her husband. Next to them lay the shiny acorn carved with George's image. George was probably at home now, Mrs. Mouse thought, also probably recovering from a tiring evening. She greatly appreciated the stag's help in finding the little ones. And after a while, Mrs. Mouse fell asleep in her armchair. In every forest there is a tree. The first tree in the whole forest. So old it knows almost everything, with roots deep in every corner of the forest, even in the realm of our thoughts and dreams.
So that story is apparently about Jerry. Something is amiss. There's a tree, and it remembers. But is that tree mousewood? We don't know.
What? What's that over there?
That is the Grey Mountain, where the crows live and forage for nourishment.
This game is taking a turn.
Wingless beings carried it here, and after the mountain came the crows and the flock.
Beings? Wait a minute.